Jack, at 17, you started the Grateful podcast while on an exchange program in France. You've grown that podcast to be a top 2% podcast globally and interviewed over 120 guests. What was the initial decision behind leaving all your friends to go to France?
I think I always just wanted more. I had the grades. I was a 4-sport athlete, 3-sport athlete my sophomore year. I was doing great socially in every aspect of my life. And yet, although I'd done all of these things, I always felt like there was more that needed to be done. I always had this kind of complex on the inside that I hadn't quite done enough yet. And going to France seemed like this massive, huge thing that I could do that would at least kind of procrastinate dealing with that feeling I had inside that I hadn't quite identified yet, right? So no one in my school's history, my town's history, had ever done something like this. And I always liked to do things that were big, a little bit insane. I was reading all the personal development at the time, and it said that if you want to change your life, you have to change your life. You know, you have to take an action that's going to catalyze exterior and internal change. And so I thought to myself, all right, going to France seems like a pretty huge way to do that. Get uncomfortable, learn a little more, grow. And it did all of those things and beyond. I had no idea what all of that would end up leading to.
Jack, there's a lot to go off of there, but I want to go back maybe to your younger years, as far back as you want to go. You said you've always had this sort of internal struggle of like wanting to do more, just putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. Have you always been like that, even as a kid, and where do you think that actually comes from?
See, Tyler, I've done this work with so many other people, and getting to do it with myself is a whole different game, right? Where does this come from? Because a lot of people that have done, that have this almost inferiority complex, whatever you want to call it, where you don't feel like enough, where you're trying to achieve your way to fulfillment, a lot of them have a similar pattern with their parents having put pressure on them to achieve, their parents having set goals and ideals for their children that the children felt like they had to live up to in order to earn some sort of love. Yet in my life, that was never, ever the case. My parents never put pressure on me. In fact, they got excited when I got in trouble at school when I was in first grade because they wanted me to learn from that failure, from the mistakes, because I was a perfectionist for the longest time. I still am. It just shows up a little bit differently. So in thinking about where this came from, I think it came from a lot of my own stuff as I started to grow up, as I started to explore, as I started to try new things. A lot of kids, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Erikson's stages of development, but Erik Erikson was a developmental psychologist, and he created 8 stages of psychosocial development for kids. And from the ages of 8 to 12, it's a time of industry versus inferiority. So basically, in each of these stages, kids have a task they must complete, or they fall into some sort of opposite of that. And I think that this is where I may have developed a lot of this, where I was a really hard worker. I was always obsessive over everything I did. And this was the time where I wanted to go out and succeed. In industry versus inferiority, if a kid is successful at what they end up trying to do, they end up feeling as if they can go and accomplish anything. They feel like they can try anything. And I think that it was during this period of my life, in sports in particular, because I was obsessed with baseball at the moment, that I felt like I never quite lived up to my expectations. I never quite did what I thought I wanted to do. I was never as good as I wanted to be. And this kind of set me up for this teenage years, very focused on sports, of not quite achieving what I wanted to. I wanted to be the star. I wanted to play pro, go D1, all of these things. And I was always just a step behind where I wanted to be. My friends were always just a little bit better than me. I was a good athlete. I wasn't a great athlete. And that kind of pattern in a lot of things of I felt like I was really good at a lot, but I wasn't great at anything, is really what started this pattern in my life of me being like, all right, I'm going to just take a big risk. I'm going to make a change because I want to do something great. I want to feel great. I want to know that I am actually great at something.
That's awesome to hear. And when you decided to actually go to France, Was it an objective as just to feel great? Did you know you were going to do the podcast? Like, walk us through that a little bit.
I had no idea that I was going to start a podcast. I mean, I was listening to podcasts semi-regularly. My mom liked listening to Jay Shetty or Mel Robbins, and I remember she shared some with me. I was reading books, so I'd read Siddhartha, The Alchemist. I actually read like 30 books in that summer. It was a lot of stuff, and I loved learning. I loved the personal development space. The year before, when I kind of made the decision that I was going to go to France, and I started to try to make some shifts in my life, I actually woke up at 5 a.m. every morning and ran for 6 months straight. And this is through the New Hampshire winter, which is freezing. I have clear memories of my feet are in snow and I'm crying because it's so cold out. But I was a little bit insane at this point in my life. And when I went to France and when I made this decision, I didn't really know what it would look like. I knew that I didn't know anybody in all of France going into the year. So I knew that it would be a challenge for me to find friends. I knew that I was the top of my French class in high school. I didn't quite know how difficult that was going to be, that lack of actual transfer, because I remember getting to France and being in the car with my host family. They just start talking my ear off, and I'm just like, I don't know what to say. So I didn't quite understand how difficult that was going to be. I think I underestimated the challenges that I was going to face there, which I think is a positive thing, because if I knew how hard it was going to be to live with a new family and a new culture, how hard it was going to be to leave everything I had behind, how hard it was going to be to achieve good grades in school and to learn a new language, I'm not sure I would have taken the step. But that difficulty and forcing myself to get through it, like there was no path but forward. I couldn't go back, right? And that was scary but freeing. It was just like, all right, I've nothing to do but get through this, but work through this and get better at French and meet new people, put myself out there, which I've always been pretty good at doing. But I made some incredible friends, developed a great bond with my host family, learned French through complete immersion. I carried around a notebook, wrote down everything I heard. I strategically figured out, how am I going to pass my classes? All right, well, it doesn't make sense to study at the beginning of the year because I don't know the language I'm studying in. So why don't I first learn French and then study? Basically, get terrible grades first semester, but learn the language, and then second semester, have to actually do the classes. And that strategy worked. It was the first time I was really able to think on my feet and be independent in the way I thought. And it was at an early age in a extreme situation, and it taught me so much.
Man, amazing. Again, so much to go off of there. I got two questions for you. The first one, it seems like you've always been interested in sort of personal development, but also it seems like you've been quite self-aware for a long time of kind of putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations. Has that always been the case for you?
I think that I've been self-aware in certain aspects for a long time. As I said previously, I was always obsessive, and sometimes I wasn't aware of how other people aren't obsessed with the same things I was. When I was younger, my first obsession was Star Wars, and I wanted to be a Jedi Knight, and I just talked to everybody about Star Wars all the time. I didn't quite know that not everyone was obsessed as I was. And then it got to baseball, and I have over here like collection stacks of baseball cards. I have thousands of cards. I would memorize all the statistics on the back of these cards, and it's all I wanted to talk about with anybody. And with old men at like family gatherings, I was everybody's favorite because I could talk sports like nobody. But certain types of people that didn't care about sports, that I didn't understand that others didn't care about sports. They didn't always love talking to me because I was obsessed and I wasn't aware. I wasn't self-aware enough to know that not everyone's as obsessed as I am.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, now I've got a couple other questions, so Colton, hang tight.
I got it.
How do you feel like that natural obsession, in your life, although it's been from Star Wars to baseball to other things, how do you think it's helped you in life and in business? And then also, how do you think it's hurt you as well?
That's important. Obsession has definitely helped me more than it's hurt me. But I think that's up to the individual. So I think that all obsession kind of starts off neutral, and you get to figure out how you're going to use it to either help you or hurt you, right? And in terms of how I've used it to propel me forward, I've used it because it keeps me concentrated. When you are obsessed with something, I think it has some level of emotional resonance where you feel so emotionally connected to a goal or an outcome or a certain result that you're not going to let anyone tell you no. You're not going to let anything stand in your way. You're going to get there. It's not an if, it's a when you're obsessed. What that leads to, and what it led to in my life when it's unchecked, is it leads to an over attachment to the goal, to the result, to the thing, right? The obsession shouldn't be about the end result. The obsession should be about doing the thing. And when you're young or when you haven't quite had the experience, obsession can easily become about obtaining a result instead of being about the progress, instead of being about the process, right? And so I think that obsession hurt me a lot because it ended up leading me to obsess over a result. Whether that, when I started my first business, was a certain number, a certain amount of money per month, whether it's a certain amount of views, whether it's a certain grade, that was the obsession. But when I ended up becoming obsessed with personal development, it stopped being as much about an outcome. And it started being more about how am I growing? What am I doing in my life? So when I was running for 6 months, it wasn't about getting to the end of 6 months. It was about every day. It was about the obsession of the feeling that I would get by proving to myself that I could do this every single day. And so I think obsession, it is a good point that you bring up, where obsession can both hurt and help people. It's just about what you're obsessing over. Are you obsessing over the result, or are you obsessing over the process? Easier said than done, but once you learn to obsess over the progress and the process, obsession is the most valuable tool you can have.
Man, that's amazing. That's something me and Colton have talked a lot about lately, actually focusing on the input, not the result, basically. What do you want to do, right? I want to grow to 50,000 followers on Instagram this year, but my real goal is to post 2 to 3 videos a day for a whole year, and then probably I'll reach that result. So that's amazing that you were able to identify that. But I'll throw it back over to you, Colton. I'm sure you got a lot to pull off of that.
There's so much. This is amazing. I want to kind of go into how you think about fear, because again, you went to France not knowing anyone, not knowing the language as confidently as you thought. So how do you manage and navigate fear?
Fear's developed over the years, and it's still something I'm working on developing my mindset around. I think, to summarize it very quickly, and then we can dive a little bit deeper, but fear is something that you should walk toward, not away. And fear points to the places where you are most apt to grow. So I've developed a relationship with fear where I used to kind of turn away from it. I would be scared of, I would have fear of fear, right? And if you've never kind of stepped into fear, fear feels like this big ominous cloud. If you've never done something you're afraid of without being forced to do it, it feels like something that's going to be really scary, that is going to be so negative, because our mind extrapolates the unknown. On the other side of fear is always unknown, right? That's why we're afraid. We're afraid of that unknown. And the only way that you can get over fear, I think the opposite of fear is confidence, and that's action. So as I've grown and I've stepped into fear, I've always had a positive result from doing something I was afraid of. The other side of fear has always been the growth that I was looking for. So as I've developed, as I've stepped into the fear more, I feel less fear of fear. And I see that what I want is on the other side of it. I use it as a guiding light, less than something I'm going to walk away from.
Yeah, that's super powerful. And when you kind of learn that mindset, I feel like, again, you're not so afraid of fear and you go towards it. And yet most people don't take that first step. So I'm curious, how did you actually take that first step and hit fear head on after, an extended period of time of being afraid of things?
I think the biggest fear moment that I can go over is when I started my first business. So I was in France. It was after I'd published a few episodes of my podcast, and I decided that I actually wanted to make money. So I did what's called YouTube automation, and YouTube automation required investing capital. And I remember it's like I had no income at the time. I had worked as a climbing instructor previously, and I needed to invest in having an editor, a voiceover artist, and all these different roles for my team. I also invested in a course, and I put most of the money I had at the time into this. And I remember I was so afraid. I mean, I was like shaking on the call. And the scariest thing for me was going to be to tell my parents that I'd done this. I knew, I had a feeling in here that it was the right thing to do, but it felt so scary. So scary. And looking back, it didn't work out to the way I wanted it to. I did well for a period of time, but if I hadn't done that, if I'd never taken that leap, I don't think I'd be here today talking to you guys. I don't think I'd have the platform I do. I don't think I would have learned the skills of how to manage people, how to deal with people. And that was the biggest step for me, because I mean, after I took the leap, after I started to make progress, I just remember being so proud of myself. Like, that was such a scary feeling. Yeah, I got over it. Bob Proctor. Are you guys familiar with Bob Proctor?
No.
Okay, so Bob Proctor, he's one of the legends in the personal development space. He died in 2021. But Bob wrote the book Born Rich, and I did one of his courses, not Think and Grow Rich, Think into Results. And he'd read Think and Grow Rich for 65 years, the amazing book by Napoleon Hill. And Bob talks about what's called a terror barrier. So he's big into vibrational frequencies and everything of that sort. And he says that what you think comes down to what you believe. It comes down to your actions, which produces your results, right? And so you can have your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And if you have an X conscious mind, let's say, that's what you're at right now, and you have an X subconscious, and you start to introduce Y thoughts, so different thoughts into your mind, then you're going to get into this really uncomfortable state where you have Y and X competing, right? Competing with your subconscious, with what you're used to. Your body doesn't quite know what to do. What am I going to act? And a lot of times what most people do, instead of ending up really going into these new why thoughts, these why beliefs, and creating why results, they get scared in that moment that they start to feel the discomfort, and they go back, they hit the wall. This is the terror barrier. And they revert right back to being X and X, right? But you have to, in order to create change, you have to go through that period of discomfort where you have both old and new belief systems, and embrace the new. Do whatever the task is. Face the fear, cross the terror barrier, and then you'll come out a newer person, a changed person with those newer results. It's like I said at the beginning that I'd listened to when I went to France. You have to change your life to change your life. But what that really means is you have to change who you are. You have to change what you believe and the things that you're doing in order to change your life.
While doing this YouTube automation, I'm assuming you had a fair amount of doubts. How did you actually manage those doubts, and what advice could you give to our audience?
I think I managed the doubts through action, and through action from somebody that was helping me. So I think that one of the things people neglect the most often in today's society is the role and importance of mentorship from someone that has done the thing you want to do. And in my life, it's been the thing that's fast-tracked my success. If you are somebody that wants to get into something, and you know you want to be successful at something, why wouldn't you try to get advice from someone that's in the exact position that you are? They've seen all of the risks. They've seen all of the mistakes. They've made the mistakes. They know what works. Who cares how much you have to pay them? They're going to get you there, right? People have this notion of, oh, I'll just do it myself. Why? Why would you ever want to do it yourself? So the way that I managed the doubts I had was I was working with someone directly who had already done it. I knew it was possible. They'd done it to an incredible scale. They'd done it 10 times. They'd helped other people do it. It felt possible. And So if you have a lot of doubts about what you're doing, get yourself into an environment where it feels like the obvious thing that's going to happen. If you're doubting yourself, it means you're in an environment where what the outcome you want to be, that outcome is an outlier. But if you put yourself in an environment where the outcome that you want is just expected, it's just the norm, you're going to have a lot less doubt in your life.
It sounds very intuitive to you. And I know for Colton and I, it is as well, because we've got a lot of great mentors in our life. And even without paying a lot of them, a lot of people are receptive to just giving us advice. And yet 99% of people either don't realize that or they don't take action in that regard. So I'm curious your view on that. Why do you think that is?
Why do I think most people don't get a mentor or get advice?
Yeah, is it fear related? Do you think people are too afraid to talk to those people or think that they won't be receptive to a conversation? Because it seems so intuitive to you. That was like the obvious thing to do. Just go get help from someone who's already done it. And yet most people don't.
I think it's really ego related at the core of a lot of it. And it's ego in the way that we're attached to who we are right now. And so many people live a life where their life is just good enough. It's fine. It's good enough that they don't want to put in the extra effort or money or whatever it is to get uncomfortable and change. That's where we stop, right? You have something holding you here. And the truth is that if you want to change your life, you're going to have to let go of who you are right now. And that's scary because who we are right now is pretty cool, right? And it's why it's easier for a lot of people to... It's why we hear so many stories, I think, of people that had nothing going to something great because their back was against the wall. It's like me in France. I had no option to go back, right? I was just there, and I had to move forward. So for so many people, they don't get the help because they're attached to where they are now. They're not that committed to moving forward because nothing's really pushing them there. And it takes someone to say, all right, I'm really wanting this thing. I'm dissatisfied with where I am. Not in a way that, and this is a really important piece for me, you don't have to be so dissatisfied that you hate your life, right? You just can want something to change. You can want something to be better without hating where you are right now. That's okay. You're just going to have to let go of a few things. You're going to have to let go of the attachment because life's not that big of a deal when you really think about it, right? I just think that our perspective is very narrow. People struggle to broaden it out a little bit is what I mean by that, by life not being that big of a deal. Like where you are right now and your feelings in this moment, they don't really matter to you 5 years from now. You don't remember what you were feeling like on April 28th, 2021, do you? Probably not.
No.
And so you're just going to remember if something big happened. And if it comes at the expense of a little bit of discomfort in the moment, I think that's an easy, logical choice, but not many people think about it in that way.
You're clearly someone who's super appreciative and has a very great perspective on life in general. Why start the Grateful podcast?
I, for the longest time, was not very grateful. I thought that I needed more in order to be happy. And there was this moment after my YouTube automation business had kind of collapsed. I'd already made a few episodes of the Grateful podcast, but when I really started going that was kind of just random. It was like my mom used to teach gratitude to us at the table, and I thought that was really important, so it's a word that I used. But when I really embodied what it really meant for me was after this moment in France where I had everything. I had kind of gained the money from my YouTube automation business. I was doing better than every person I knew at my age. I had learned French, had accomplished that goal. I gained a great relationship with my host family, made great friends in France. And I still felt empty. It still felt like I needed to do more. And I remember looking in the mirror at myself, making eye contact and being like, when is this going to end? How is this going to end? I realized it wasn't if I continued down the same pattern. If I kept hoping that happiness would come at the end of an achievement, then I was never going to get there. So I realized in the next few months, just reflection, that our lives have all the necessary ingredients for us to feel the way we want to feel. There are people in the world with the things that we have that feel happy, that feel joyful. So it's not about what we have. It's about our perspective on it, right? And this is proven with research. So as I started to realize this, I'm like, what is the through line of the happy people? And it's gratitude. It's feeling grateful for the things that they have. Like I said, it's the perspective, because you can have a bigwig executive, multimillionaire with all the things that you want or that you think you want that feels way worse than you do. And you can go to the streets of any city, maybe not the most affluent place, and you can see kids running around having fun, parents playing with their kids, and they're happy. So it's not about the things, it's about your perspective on life. And that's when I really started to embrace this idea of gratitude. And I also at the same time realized that it's not just having gratitude that's important. It's important to have ambition as well. Because the people that are just grateful, that's complacency. That's apathy. That's when they're saying, oh, my life's just fine, right? You need to have some goals. You need to be making progress in order to feel this gratitude, in order to feel successful in whatever area. Humans crave progress. So this is when I developed this idea of the duality of gratitude and ambition, feeling both extreme gratitude for where you are right now while also working toward a goal of yours, focusing on the progress that you're making. And when you have those ingredients into your life, I don't think it's possible to not feel fulfilled.
Man, that's such powerful stuff. Let's get a little deeper into that because, gratitude and ambition, you could argue, are kind of push-pull forces. So how do you personally manage being happy and fulfilled with where you are, but also knowing where you want to go in the future?
It's a constant practice, and I think that's what people don't understand. They think that in everything, it's this sexy idea that you can reach it, and then you're there for good, right? It's almost like you reach something, you have a floor, and you can't go back down. That's not how life works. That's not how the world works. For me, it's a constant practice. I have to wake up every day and consciously appreciate things. I have to wake up every day and say, I'm grateful for this. Every night before I go to bed, I say, I'm grateful for this. Whatever it is that happened during that day. That's all while having a clear vision of where I'm going. And it actually makes it so much easier because when you have a grateful perspective and you're grateful for the things in your life, you don't feel like you need. It's not a necessity to achieve anymore, right? You stop attaching all of this to this up here. And when you stop attaching it, for some reason, you end up getting it faster. I don't know if you guys have realized this, or I relate to this at all, but if you want something so bad and it's all you're thinking about, and you're just like, I need this to happen, I need it to go through, it doesn't always happen. In baseball, if you're like, don't strike out, don't strike out, don't strike out, you're going to strike out. But if you're up there and you're like, I'm a great hitter, I have all I need, this is awesome, I want to hit a line drive right up the middle. Focus on that. You're focusing on that just because that's what you're focusing on, not because you need it for your self-worth or whatever. That's when you get the line drive up the middle. That's when you smash it. And it's hard for a lot of people, Tyler, because we're taught in this society that it's achievement that brings us happiness. And you have to work for recognition from other people. We're taught that we have to earn certain things, and when you realize that you don't have to earn everything, it's freer and it allows you to actually perform at a fuller level.
Man, you're dropping a lot of wisdom today, Jack. I'm very impressed how aware you are and quite frankly wise, especially at the young age of only 19. I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
Going into the podcast, though, what's the number one takeaway that you've found in your life from interviewing 120 people now? I think you're on 120 episodes.
Yeah, I have found that the most successful people, in terms of both financially and emotionally, they value relationships over everything, and they will try to give more than anything. They're givers, all of them at the heart of it. I've learned about this thing called the impression of increase, where you leave every single person you come into contact with feeling better than they were before, if that makes sense. And when you talk to people that are extremely successful in the business world, athletics, whatever it may be, they leave others better than they found them. And they are so focused on that. That's their one goal. Because when they serve people like that, that's when they end up receiving. So, for example, I had a billionaire founder on the podcast, and she was just so kind to me. And after the podcast, she sent me a text like, "Jack, thank you so much. I love that." Later in the week, she was like, "Jack, when's the episode coming out? I'm so excited to share it with people." When it came out, she's like, "Jack, how can I help promote? I think the title might be this. I was running it through AI to help you out." Like, all these different things. And this is a pattern I see across these people. The most successful people, they make time for relationships and other people. Whereas people I find that are just a little bit below that, right? Where they're not quite at the level that they want to be, they're often like, "Oh, I don't quite have time for that. Oh, let's just do a 15-minute meeting. Oh no, I can't fit that in my schedule." And these ultra successful people, they find time for the people in their lives, because that's where they realize the needle is being moved.
Who's been your biggest mentor and influence in life so far?
It's a great question. I think my mom. My mom, just her energy is the most contagious thing in the world. She is, everybody that meets her calls her just like a ball of sunshine, because she walks in a room with a huge smile, gives everybody a hug, and everybody just feels better. And going back to that last question, like that's what I want to do, right? Make everybody just feel better about themselves. If you can make people feel better about themselves, they'll do whatever you want. It's just that's the key to life right there. Make as many people feel best about themselves as possible. And my mom is the greatest in the world at doing that. She just lifts other people up, and she's the reason I work out the way I do. She's the reason I eat healthy, wake up early, all these things. She's been just the greatest mentor for me.
Do you think that's your biggest goal in life, and that's why you stay motivated, is to help other people?
Yeah, I think I've gone in and out of that. But in the moments where I grow the most and I actually get the most, that is my goal. Right now, that's my goal, and I hope to keep it forever. It's easy sometimes in the world we live in with social media, constant comparison. Your gag reel against everybody else's highlight reel to feel insufficient and feel like you need to do more, and you need to do more for you. And the ironic thing is, when you get kind of trapped in that, you end up receiving less, you end up getting less, you end up doing less for yourself. So yeah, I think that helping people, specifically helping people understand that what they have in their lives has all the necessary ingredients for happiness, and that all they have to do is just build towards something that really excites them. That's specifically my goal. Because when you start doing that, when you're specifically trying to help people, you receive more than any time that you're just doing it for yourself.
Interesting. How do you stay grounded with that vision and that purpose in a world of social media, with Lamborghinis being driven around every day by guys younger than you, and AI in every single headline?
the most important thing in staying grounded and not getting caught up in all that is understanding what it is that you actually want. Because if you know exactly what it is that you want, then you're not going to get distracted by random things and headlines that don't matter to you and your goals. And it's the biggest mistake I see young people making, especially young men, is building these things because it's what they think they want, but they've never actually taken the time to understand, what is it that I want to build my life around? What is it that I want my life to look like? And when I say want, it's not like that surface level desire. It's that true deep want of like, what values do I hold in my life? And I've done a good job of getting clear on the things that I truly want in my life, so that when I see someone doing something, I'm able to be happy for that person. I'm able to say, oh, that's great. I'm so happy for you that you're achieving that success in that area of life, in that domain. That's not mine. This happens. Right. This happens over time. It's a constant work in progress. My friend, his name's Wilder, and he has his own content business and does great. And when we first started, like, we said to each other, like, we feel happy for each other, but the first feeling and emotion we felt when someone else would succeed is, why not me? And as we've grown and understood that, like, and seen the work each other have put in, and understand that, oh, that's not for me, it's so much easier to free yourself from that jealousy and just feel happy for another person. And it's because you get more grounded in the thing that you actually want.
Right. How do you think someone can actually take the first step in that direction? Because I don't think it's natural. People everywhere feel jealous of all the Lamborghinis on Instagram. So how do you actually take that first step and sort of look at yourself and be like, look, that's great for them, but I need to stay focused on what I'm doing?
It's by actually looking inside instead of outside. You're never going to find the answers to your internal problems on the outside of you. So if you want to figure out what it is that you want, you need to stop looking on Instagram and TikTok, and you need to start looking inside. You need to start spending time alone with yourself, because when's the last time you actually spent more than 5 minutes alone? Even that much? Like, seriously, for the people listening, I want to know how many people are spending time alone with their thoughts. Because once you even do it a little bit and you make it a practice, you start to realize that you didn't really know yourself. When you know yourself, it becomes a lot easier to have those conversations. I mean, I sound crazy, but having conversations with myself is something I do often. Like, all right, if I feel a certain emotion, it's like, all right, there's jealousy coming up. All right, Jack, where's that coming from? Is that valid? Is that something I want? Do you want to be doing the things that person did to get there? Do you want to spend years learning about drop shipping? No. See, that's not you. I don't think people can get Lamborghinis drop shipping anymore, but that's besides the point. Yeah, so really starting to just carve out time to have to yourself is the only way. It's not the best way, the fastest way, the sexiest way, but it is the only way that you're ever gonna be able to really know what you want and be able to let go of some of those feelings of jealousy.
You've done so many great things and are already extremely educated for your age, Jack. Why are you going to university? What's the thought process behind that?
Shit. I'm gonna be honest. It's a question I ask myself a lot, and the thoughts behind it are really, this year at university, I met the greatest people in the world, and I was able to develop like the most incredible friendships, and that's really the most valuable thing that I got from university this year. And I think as I go forward in terms of opportunities and education, neuroscience is something that I'm extremely interested in. And there's still an element in this world where you need a degree in order to be credible in certain fields. And I want to learn why people behave the way that they do on a biological standpoint. mean, today we've been talking about a lot of very important mindset ideas that they're true. I've seen them, I've observed them, I've learned about them from like experts, but I don't quite understand the biological mechanisms behind them. I don't understand the real root of why. And understanding that, I think, allows you to really solve problems so much faster and more consistently, if that makes sense. So the university question is interesting because I've been thinking a lot about it recently. But that's been the main pro of university for me. Plus, as I said, the relationships have been incredible.
Yeah, that makes sense. So obviously being in university while running a podcast, coaching business and everything else that you do, how do you actually manage your time between those two kind of different but very busy, things going on in your life?
Comes down to priority for me. So I have goals. I think having a goal that's written down, that's important, is one of the best things that you can do, because everything that you're doing, whether you like it or not, is either taking you closer or further away from that goal. So right now I'm in summertime. This is actually incredible because I have 4 months of all of my focus is on one thing. But in the school year, there's seasons that I go through. So the 2 weeks before I left, it was not a lot of time on the podcast and the coaching business and all of that. I had some calls scheduled, booked in. I had some podcasts pre-edited that I was just going to put out there, but it wasn't going to be a growth season. It was more of a maintaining, right? And it was study, because it was final season. The first half of the second semester is the best I've ever balanced anything. And I would have very specific time slots where I would be super focused on one thing, and I would make progress and I would finish a task and then move on to the next. So for example, before organic chemistry, every class I would spend an hour reviewing or going over what that class was going to go over ahead of time so I could get really engaged in class and get the maximum value for my time. And then I could spend more time on calls and podcast production and booking and outreach and all of the above later. And that's the best I've ever managed it, being very, very particular and focused on a task while I'm there and trying to maximize the value of my time. So get the most out of every hour, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense and it's very insightful. And my next question kind of goes back, but I just want to get into it. Obviously, you've spent a lot of time doing self-reflection. You seem very educated on internal self-reflection. Is there any specific ritual or system that you follow on a daily or weekly basis to kind of maintain that?
Yeah, right now I have a pretty loose, just 10-minute meditation every morning. And I have it right here. I have a journal I'll write in sometimes. It's not like I hold myself to doing it every single night. But a lot of times I have things I want to say. And then every morning when I wake up and every night before I go to bed, I just say a few things I'm grateful for out loud. And I really feel it. And that habit, I think, is the most important. I used to write it down, but I really, really enjoyed just saying it out loud and really feeling it as I say it. Because it makes a really big difference in ending and starting your day in that way. Kind of just bookends your day to be great and to feel like you're starting from abundance.
How do you manage maintaining all your relationships while also handling being an entrepreneur and school? Because you're talking to some billionaires, you got your classmates. Like, walk us through that a little bit.
It is really funny when I'm like at a dinner with my friends or whatever, and then I'm like, all right, I gotta call with a billionaire in 30 minutes. I'm gonna run or something like that. But all my relationships serve specific purposes, and I think that just really giving time to them when they come into my head is really important. So if I think of someone, I'm just going to shoot them a quick text or call them real quick or send them a video. And I don't spend as much time with people as I used to, but I think I'm spending more quality time with people. in the time that I do give people, I try to be as present and as interested as I could possibly be. And that's really how I balance my time, because I don't think I'm at a stage right now where people understand that I have goals that are my priorities, and people and those relationships are always going to be a priority, but not in the sense that they maybe used to be, where we would just spend a few hours together, maybe hanging on our phones or whatever in between. Now it's like, all right, we're going to have time together, and we're going to really spend time with each other during that time. And that's really how I think I've balanced a lot of relationships well.
That makes sense. I've got two questions now. But on that note, you said that you just really want to be present with your friends or whoever you're spending that time with. How do you actually get into that frame of mind? Because personally, sometimes I struggle. If I go see a friend, I might just be thinking about the podcast tomorrow or the work I have to do tonight. So how do you stay present?
I ask questions. I find that when I'm asking questions, I end up being much more present than if I'm talking. Because if I'm talking, all I want to talk about is my podcast or my business. It's all I want to talk about. Anyone in my life will tell you that. And then all of a sudden I'm somewhere else, right? But if I'm asking a question and I am forcing myself to engage in that conversation, it becomes a lot easier to be present, because I surround myself with people that I'm genuinely interested in. And if I can get into a state where I'm expressing that interest, then it really helps. And also doing fun things with people, where it's not just always a dinner, right? Whether it's going to the gym with people or going on a run or a hike or something fun. That also allows me to be more present, because we're in an environment that's conducive to that present state.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. That's a fantastic approach to being present with everything else you have going on. And my other question is more of a statement, and it's, your network is your net worth. Do you believe that that's true?
You have to take advantage of your network in a certain way. But yeah, I believe that, just for example, I'm going to be in Toronto next week. And I had a podcast interview I'd scheduled. It was pretty exciting, and it had to get canceled. And I'm like, all right, I need to figure out. I still want to go, so I'm gonna figure out who I'm gonna get there. And I know 4 people in Toronto, and all of them are out of town. So I text them, and I'm like, guys, I need your help. And they got me. They helped me out. I have a ton of people that I'm going to be interviewing now that are absolutely awesome. I didn't know existed beforehand. And that's because of the network that I've built. One of the guys, his name's Jonathan Goodman, and 2 of his books are actually holding up my computer right now. He's an incredible connector, and he's one of the most generous, kind individuals I've ever spoken to. I had him on my podcast, I think episode 42. You should check him out. And the people that you connect yourself with, if they are also givers and they're also connectors, then your network is the most important thing that you'll build.
I think that brings it to a key point too. I think a lot of people, and I especially did when I first started trying to network, thought I couldn't provide a lot of value to give to other people. What advice would you give to our audience?
The best advice that you can give people is to be interested. David Meltzer told me. David Meltzer, who is one of the biggest guests I've ever had on the show, he said that you have to be more interested than interesting. And every single person I've ever met wants to talk about themselves. They want to talk about themselves to someone that is super interested and just is asking them great questions, and someone that wants to learn from them because they want to feel important. Every person in the world wants to feel important. And if you can make someone feel important, that's the biggest thing that you're going to ever give to them. The most valuable thing. Most people would rather feel important than know that you might have something like, I don't know. When you say valuable, what do you think it was that you thought you couldn't provide? What value were you looking to provide?
Yeah, therapy session here. I think it turned into At the time, thinking back on it, I wasn't enough, and I didn't have enough good insights to provide to the people I was trying to network with because they were bigger guys in the industry.
Right.
Therefore, I didn't feel like I could provide any value to them. I was kind of begging for an opportunity.
Interesting. So there were people that you were kind of looking to maybe end up working for or something like that. Yeah.
Approximately, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that what I've learned with people like that is you just have to, like I said, be the most interested person there, because when you give the vibe off that you're the most curious person, that you're an implementer, maybe throw in a few lines of like things and times that you've implemented something or you've done something cool, then it doesn't have to be any grand thing either. People don't always expect that. They don't expect you to have done something insane. They're judging you less than you're judging yourself. And understanding that and knowing that, all right, all I have to do is just seem super interested in this person and show them that I'm going to take action on what they tell me. And if they tell me to do something, send them a follow-up email in 2 weeks showing them that you did it. And oftentimes they'll offer you an opportunity because that's the type of person that they wish they had more of around them. So just being the type of person that you wish you had around you for other people it just brings you opportunities. And if it doesn't bring you an opportunity with someone, then they're an outlier. They're a weirdo. You probably don't want to be around them anyways.
Yeah, interesting. So much value there. I've got a couple of questions. Again, it seems like I've always got 2 questions every time you say something, Jack. First of all, do you feel like you've always been naturally curious about other people, or do you feel like that was a learned behavior?
I think curiosity has always been there. I like to tell people I never got out of the why phase. I mean, when I was a kid, my dad says that I would never stop asking why. It would be like, yeah, it just, and it went on forever. Except now I overcomplicate it and I make my questions try to sound a lot smarter than just saying why. But at the core of everything, I think why is still the question. And a lot of that curiosity has always been about people, about why we do the things that we do. I think my life has had a lot of interesting moments where I've been like, why did they do what they did there? And over time, that's compounded into kind of being the guiding question for everything that I'm doing.
Yeah, interesting. I bet if you could boil down the whole purpose of Real Leverage in it, stick it to one word, it could be why. And
Yeah.
That's probably the case for a lot of podcasts, quite frankly. People
Yeah.
just want to know why something. So that's really insightful to hear. My other question is, obviously you've done a lot of podcast episodes now and you've been grinding it out for a few years. So I'm curious, what kind of opportunities have come to you in your life for personal or for business from being present on social media?
Wow. There's been a lot of different opportunities when it comes to just like speaking to people that I've always wanted to speak to. When it comes to having some of my favorite athletes ever like connect with me on LinkedIn and being like, where did that come from? But I think that honestly, like this summer, I have a lot of big opportunities coming in my life just from being present on social media. I mean, I told you I got shown into the Diary of a CEO headquarters. That would not have happened if I didn't show on my Instagram. And I think it was my LinkedIn actually. And that was so cool. And then I've also been offered like VIP base MLB All-Star game tickets because of this. I've had a hotel paid for me to come to an event and go to a dinner. Things like that where when you show up on social media and you show up with your authentic self, I don't have the most followers in the world, but people gravitate toward who that person is. I had one of my recent followers saw me on the streets of London out of the craziest coincidence in the world. He started a podcast and I guested on his show in person. And it's just like opportunities like that just seem to come to you when you are showing up in an authentic way.
Mm-hmm. There's a saying Tyler and I have, and it's be seen, be read, be heard. And it's probably one saying we preach at least once a week. And it's so important. Do you think social media has fueled your love for finding out the why in people and just growing your business and everything in general?
Yes and no. I have moments where I hate social media And I've had to work through that, to be honest. I've had too many moments where I've just quit posting on Instagram and other things and been like, people will find it. No, they won't. If I've learned anything, they won't find the podcast, and it's our responsibility to show it to the world and to get it out there. So in a lot of ways, yes, social media has it actually has taken away from my love for growth and all of that, but then it's also connected me with all of these people that are so inspiring and the most incredible people I've ever met, and that's fueled my love for it in a way that it will never be able to take away. But I think that the best way that I've used social media, and I am hoping to leverage it so much more, real leverage, is by just getting relationships that get taken offline.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Do you think that being present on social media is a requirement to find success in business in 2026?
Requirement. I think that for almost all cases, yes, there are going to be outliers. There are going to be exceptions. I know a few exceptions, but it's hard. You have to. The people I know who are the exceptions to that, they just know people. They were in the game before social media took over, or their parents were in the game before social media took over. You know, they had the old school type of notoriety. So if you're starting now from scratch, then most likely yes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know we're approaching time here. I don't know if you have any other questions, Colton, you want to ask Jack, or hit him with the last question.
If you're good, I'll hit him with the last question that we ask all our guests. Jack, if you had one final piece of advice for our audience, what would it be?
It would be to take time to figure out what it is that you want. Take time alone. And then understand that because you don't have that yet, that doesn't mean that you're worthless. You have to figure out, one, what you want, two, understand why your life is already awesome. From that perspective, ask yourself that question. Why is my life awesome? You're going to find things. When you ask yourself a question, you find the answer. And then, lastly, with that perspective in mind, work toward that one thing that you said you truly want. Now, you're not going to compare yourself to other people that are doing other things because you're confident in the thing that you want. And you're not going to tell yourself that you need that thing in order to be happy, because you will be asking yourself why your life is awesome, and you'll be finding answers. That's a simplified version, but it works as a broad framework.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on today, Jack. What a great final answer for the podcast, and tons of value was dropped. Make sure you guys subscribe, first of all, to the Real Leverage podcast if you made it this far, and definitely check out Jack in the description below. Go subscribe to his podcast and check him out.
Thank you, guys. This was an amazing interview. I really appreciate you.